So what's going on, everybody? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. We're going to go ahead and get right into it because I'm got some things I need to get into later on this afternoon. And what we're going to talk about is, should you buy options alerts to get success in the markets, right? So if you can hear me, give me a heads up in the comments that you can actually hear me, that my audio is going through. And, this is going to be a video for a person that is in the options market, or maybe they're on the outside looking in. And they're trying to kind of decide, can I get the success that I desire utilizing options alerts? And there's a really, really big market for options alerts. And we're going to kind of explore, what they actually are, what I think the pros and cons are, my own personal perspective on them. And, whether or not you can kind of get the success that you desire utilizing options alerts, right? And so what we want to first ask is, like, what are options alerts? Okay, so what are they? What they really are is that they're like a service that a lot of times people sell, to where if they notice an options chain or an options particular contract that they believe could be successful or profitable for someone based on that particular scenario going on at that time, they will send out an alert. And there's a lot of different ways people now kind of link it to their mobile. I know people that have like Twitter, like you can have a private Twitter feed. I know people that got Discord groups. There's a lot of different ways to get the alert out, but really what it is just information based on, I believe that this particular options contract, based on the actual situation going on currently, can be successful or be profitable for someone. And then I just issue out that alert. So it's kind of like a heads up on it. And, you could be putting them out on the daily. You could be putting them out all throughout the day. You could be putting them out on more of a long-term basis. But what you see with a lot of groups is they're kind of like daily options alerts, in which they put out alerts all through the day. I know a lot of people that are in certain Discord groups, and they're pretty much just alert groups. And what we've seen is that because a lot of people have come into the market over the past year, these particular type of groups have really, really blown up, right? To where the fact that now having an options alert is almost like a commodity, right? And that's pretty much what they are. Now, a lot of people go into these particular groups because they want a way in which they can be successful in the market without doing, to me, a lot of the work that it's going to take to be successful. And I'm not saying that from a negative standpoint. I kind of understand that most people in life looking for the easy button. So because they want to make money and they're looking for the easy button, the options alert seems to look like a solution to that problem. And we got to kind of understand the psychology of a lot of people is that I want to get an easy way to get what I want. So instead of me doing the work to get what I want, I'm willing to pay to what I think the convenience is. So if somebody else will do the work to look up the alerts for me, I'll pay them. They'll give me the alert. I'll play the particular alert and I can benefit from it, even though I don't really know what's going on, but it's just really a byproduct of the business that I'm engaged in with this particular person. Now, a lot of people may say, well, David, you said you learned the options by buying alerts. Why doesn't everybody else do the same thing? Well, you got to understand is that when I was buying alerts, there really wasn't a lot of alerts available. This thing has kind of really gotten big over the past year. When I was buying alerts, really a lot of people were not selling options alerts. It wasn't something that was really normal like it is now. Two, I was not in an alert group in which they gave out alerts all day. I was an alert that pretty much gave them out on the daily, but I came into it buying the alerts with the intent to learn options. I never bought the alerts just so I could get money out of the options market. I bought the alerts because I came in with the intent to learn the market that way, right? So I said, I'm going to buy these alerts because I'm going to learn the options market. And so I'm going to buy what this person is producing so I can reverse engineer them, right? It's the same reason why, like back in the day, the Japanese would buy something American and study it. Why? Because they're going to reverse engineer it. They're not buying it because they want to use it. So that was my goal from the gate. I never bought alerts because I just wanted to figure out how I can make money out of the market, even though I don't really know what's going on. So that's something that a lot of people find themselves involved in. Now we're going to kind of go into the pros and the cons of the alert. So here's the pros and cons of buying options alert. Here's the pros. Pros is if the person that is giving out the alerts knows what they're doing, you can make money in the market off that person's work. And a lot of times what they're charging you is not comparable to what you're getting. So if I'm putting out really, really good alerts, right, I may be charging you $100 a month. Well, if you're making thousands of dollars a month, the deal's all on your side. Why? Because you're just paying me $100 a month. So there's a lot of leverage. It's a lot of leverage on the side of the consumer because they're only making they're risking their capital on the options play, but they're not risking their time, and they're only paying $100. And that's one of the issues that the consumer desires. See, we're gonna go ahead and get into this. I don't want to sidetrack, but I want people to understand the psychological dilemma that a lot of people have. A lot of people go to school. It took me a long time to realize this. They'll go to college and pay $60,000, $70,000 to get a college education to make 60 grand a year, and then to come out of college and not have any guarantee of employment, not have any real guarantee of financial success, but you still owe somebody money. But then when it's time to learn something that's going to allow them to make money, they always want to pay less than college. And I really never understood that because I was looking at it with my own eyes. And what I had to realize is that when a lot of people are going to college, they're buying status of going to college. They're buying the status of being a member of that particular institution, and they're willing to pay a premium for that. A lot of times when they're going to self-educate themselves, they don't believe that that carries the same status. So then they're a lot more discriminatory in the price that they're willing to pay, because we understand that most people in this world will pay a lot of money for status or what we now call clout. So it always was interesting to me that a person will want to make money in the market, but only be willing to pay a few $100s to try to make thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, but they spent $70,000, $80,000 in college to make 60 grand a year if somebody gives you a job. But then I had to realize that they're not buying that result. They're buying the clout of being a member of that particular institution and to be able to tell people that I'm in college. And that's what I really had to wrap my head around, because as a marketer, a lot of times we can't look through something through our eyes. Because when I went to college, it didn't matter to me what college I went to. I just knew what college I was not going to go to. But I wasn't gassed on the fact that I went to college. But a lot had to do with me being a non-traditional student. So I didn't really get that, but now I get it. And so because we don't see that kind of value, we want somebody to show us how to make $1,000 a month in the market for $100 a month. Because we don't perceive that status as the same as I go to Florida, right? And so that's what people really got to understand. And so that's what I really didn't understand. So that's one of the pros, is that if you're successful with the alerts, all the leverage is on the side of the consumer. Because if a person is spending time to look through these particular options chains to figure out what alerts that they're giving you, and then all you got to do is make the play, and you're paying them $100 a month, and you making $1,000 a month off their alerts. Well, you got all the leverage because they doing all the work, you making the money, and they only getting $100 a month out of you, right? So to get $1,000 out of you, they got to hold you in that program for 10 months. So you got all the leverage. So it's a great deal for you. So that's one of the pros, is you have a lot of leverage. Another one of the pros is that we talked about leverage before, is that you don't have to do the work. So you can just sit back and receive this other person's labor that you're paying for, and then they do all the work, and you're able to free yourself up to do other things, and you don't have to go do the work. You don't have to study the market. You don't have to understand what's going on, because they're doing all of that. 3, it's normally at a price that most people believe that they can afford, because one of the ways in which you really make money off an alerts group is you make money off numbers. So you normally don't say, I'm gonna have an alerts group of like 4 people, and I'm gonna charge all 4 of those people $1,000 a month, right? So then you only got to have 4 people in there to make $4 grand a month. Most people, they do their alerts group where I'm gonna charge people $50 to $100 a month, and I'm making money on volume. So it's very easy for you to get in, because the person that's running the group is doing a volume play. So it's a low barrier to entry for the consumer to get in. So those are the pros. It's very easy for you to get in. You got a lot of leverage, and you don't have to do the work, right? You're able to kick back and let somebody else produce that work for you. And then all you got to do is go play it. The cons are, the first con is you don't learn anything, right? So you're not learning anything because you don't know why the alert works in the first place. So if you don't know anything, right? You don't have the ability to ever separate yourself from that situation and still think you can have that same level of success because you're just receiving it. So what a person has done is says, I'm going to create an easy button for you, and I'm going to buy the easy button. And then all I got to do now is keep buying this easy button every month and I can get what I want, right? But the con is you're not learning anything. So if that situation discontinues, you don't have anything. That's going to go into the second con, is that person can decide next week, I don't want to do alerts anymore, right? And then now what do? So if all your money is dependent upon that person producing the information that's going to allow you to make money, now what do you go do? And that's the biggest challenge that a lot of people have, is that one of the things that we've created in this world, and the internet has a lot to do with it, is we really think somebody else is supposed to do our work, because the internet has created the narrative that everything is so easy to accomplish. So let me give you an example. There was a scholar back in the day called Dr. Clark. He wanted to learn about the Moors. What he did was he took either a boat or a plane, one of the two, and he went to Spain. And he went to the libraries in Spain because they had information on the Moors inside the library in Spain. That information did not exist inside the United States. Well, to get that information, he had to be willing to, one, pay the cost of travel, take his time, take the effort, organize that, whatever he got to do to get over there. Historically, that's how most information was obtained. A lot of times, if the information didn't exist in your area, you had to travel to that particular area. So before the internet, there were maybe libraries in major cities in which you had to travel to that major city to get those particular publications. You couldn't get those publications in your city. So if you lived in Birmingham, Alabama, you maybe had to travel to the college library, or maybe even had to travel to Atlanta to get access to certain publications that existed in those particular institutions, because in your area, you could not get access to that information. So you had to go do that work. What the internet has created is a narrative that somebody else is going to do the work for me. So once we get into a particular trend of that, everybody else starts to believe that, well, all I got to do is go on the internet and somebody else will have done all the work for me. I just got to go watch their YouTube video. Because it used to be you had to read their blog. You only got to read anymore. Everything's now in video form, right? So that's kind of the narrative that has pretty much been reinforced, because there was a time where literally you had to go. I remember trying to get books from the library, and this was even during the internet era, but before we had the kind of internet that we got today. This was like in the late 90s, where I would want to get a book, and I would have to do what they call an interlibrary loan, where the library that I was dealing with would loan the book from another library. It would sometimes take 2 to 3 weeks to get to me. So I had to wait just to get that particular publication so I could read it to get that information. So it was a lot more time involved and a lot more effort, because I had to literally go to the library and look up this particular book and then go to them and be like, hey, I want to get this book. Y'all don't have it, but can I do it through an interlibrary loan? It wasn't at my fingertips. So I think this kind of trend that we've gotten into with people is that somebody else is going to do the work for me that I'm going to benefit from. And not only that, I can get it at a low cost, because I don't believe there's a lot of status associated with this particular situation, where back in the day, if you was going to go study with a group of people that you knew had a lot of information, there was a lot of status associated with that. Now, these institutions now have you believing they're the only place that got status. If I wanted to go study Shaolin Kung Fu and there was a particular Grand Master, there was a lot of status associated with that because I was a student of this particular Grand Master. That don't exist anymore. All the statuses with these particular institutions. I went to Duke, I went to Michigan, I went to Ohio State, I went to Kentucky, yada, yada, yada. I don't even talk about what college I went to. Why? Because it don't have anything to do with what I got going on right now. But this is kind of the psychology. So one of the reasons why these alert groups, and I'm gonna kind of show you what I'm talking about with this webpage, is that people want the information to become to them relatively easy without them having to do a lot of work. And they're willing to pay for that, but they're still not willing to pay what they would be willing to pay a particular institution, right? But a person is feeding you information that's going to help you make money. You say you want to make money, But there's still a limit on that because, like I said, is that the perceived value, and this is something that Mr. Jeffrey talked about, there's a different perceived value between a college and you learning from somebody else outside of college, right? And I give the colleges credit. They've done a great job marketing to people to get them to believe that. So that's the con. The third con is that because you don't know the market, you don't know whether or not that information is correct until you go apply it, because you don't have your own analysis of the information. So what I talked about with me is that when I was buying alerts from this guy, I would get the alerts. And if I couldn't figure out in the pre-market why he published that particular alert, I wouldn't play it. So I literally wouldn't play the majority of the alerts I was buying. I was paying like maybe $140, $150 a month for alerts. He would sometimes put out maybe 2 alerts a day. I didn't get these alerts all throughout the day like they give out now. I was getting sometimes 2 alerts a day. If I looked at those 2 alerts and I couldn't figure out what was going on, I wouldn't play it, because my job was to understand why he created this alert. What is going on in the market to where he has confidence in putting this out? So that's the issue, is that a lot of times you can be getting those particular alerts, but have no idea why they're being created. So when you don't have any really context, so then if it goes bad, you don't know why it went bad. And if it goes right, you don't know why it went right. So let me show you something real quick, right? Because I'm gonna kind of show you what I mean and show you how big this alerts market is. So let me share my screen real quick. So this is a Google search of options alerts. So I have my particular web browser open and I have my ads blocker off. So the reason why these people are this high in the Google ranking, right, is because they paid for this ad slot. So this says ad because it's an ad. So they paid money for this ad slot under the keyword, which is options alerts, which brought up 347, I believe that's million. So there's a lot of search intent for this particular keyword, right? Live trade alerts, prep to grow, 93 historic win rate, buy and sell alerts. Then we got the Twitter feeds that come up, right? Then we have these particular things. They probably SEO this to get this to come up, right? So we have all these people selling you options alerts. All these people are selling you. Then we got more ads. This guy on Fiverr is selling you options alerts. People got to understand is that you have all these particular options alerts that are being sold. Why? Because it's a big market for this. And that's what a lot of people really, really got to understand. So what I want people to realize is that options alerts are not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily good, right? But if you don't ever desire to learn the market, it can put you in a situation to where you're going to just be dependent upon those particular alerts, and you're not ever going to be able to have any success. Now, I want to talk about some alternatives to the options alerts. Let me go ahead and get rid of this screen. So what are the alternatives? Well, you know what, I'm going to tell you what the alternative is. The alternative is that you go learn the market, right? Because you want to have your own understanding of what's going on, in my opinion, as opposed to just having somebody else feed information to you, because you don't understand whether or not that information is correct. You necessarily can't put it in context. And the problem is when that information gets cut off and your income is dependent upon that information, now what do you go do? So I don't believe in, and this is something that kind of comes out of the MLM space, and I'm not trying to disrespect MLM, but this is kind of the narrative that they're using, is that we're going to bring you into something and you're going to quote unquote earn until you learn. I don't believe that you should earn until you learn. I should believe that you should learn to earn. So one of the problems that we have is that we're so desperate for something, or we have such a short attention span. If we don't get a quick result, we lose our attention on it. So I want to make money because I'm dissatisfied with my income. But if I don't make money in 90 days or 60 days, I don't believe that this works. So then I go to something else. This is why I had to realize that people don't go to college to become financially successful, because a person will sit in school for 4 years and not make any money, just be spending money, but they'll stay in that particular program. Why? Because they want the status associated with being at that school, because they're not making any money while they're in school. They just spending money. But I'll go into a particular course that's supposed to teach me how to become successful financially in this particular area. And if I don't get it in 60 days or 90 days, I feel like it doesn't work, or I lose my attention span on it and I jump to something else. Because either I'm really desperate for money or I have a short attention span. So then what they do is they create this narrative where you're going to learn, you're going to earn while you learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed you plays that you can make money off of. And then what you're supposed to do on the back end is learn how to make money in the market. But my question is, why don't you just go learn how to make money in the market? Like you would learn how to be an electrician first before you felt like you should make money as an electrician. You will learn how to be a plumber. You will learn how to do any trade or vocation first before you really expected to be able to make any kind of reasonable amount of money out of that particular space. And that's the same thing if you go into real estate, if you go into cryptocurrency, any area. I would think the expectation would be that you have to learn how to do it first before you should expect to earn anything from it. But because of the short attention span of the particular market, they believe that they should be earning before they learn. So people feed that particular desire. Well, I'm going to feed you some plays. I'll put a course on the back end. But most people are going to just keep taking what's being fed to them, right? Instead of actually going and actually learning. Because I think maybe you should stop and commit a certain amount of time just to learn what you need to learn to be successful, right? And so that's what people got to understand. So that would be the particular alternative, is to learn first, right? But that may not fit for everybody else, because I said a lot of people, they're not even attracted to certain situations until they are in a particular mode of desperation, okay? Now, what we want to talk about is, I was speaking to a guy who took the particular course, and we were having a one-on-one. Now, this is what I want people to kind of understand, is that people I think are going to be set up for success. And I normally see this consistently throughout everybody else, right? We got on the call. It's a younger cat, got to be in his mid-20s, younger brother. He went through the course 3 times, right? He already had his Power 5 picked out. He was trading already. He already had put his trading plan together. And he didn't have a complex trading plan, but he did have a trading plan. He listened to multiple earnings calls of the companies that he was trading. So he was trading Ford. He had already listened to multiple earnings calls of Ford. So when we got on the call, what he was asking me is about certain things that are said on the earnings call. How come this particular company, Ford had reported that even though there's a chip shortage, they had a particular way in which they were dealing with that. And they were also going to sell their used cars. But even though they came up with those particular solutions, they still sold off. And I kind of got them to understand is that you got to understand market sentiment. And so you don't necessarily want to look at things with your eyes. You want to kind of understand how the market's going to perceive it, and understand that when a person is putting out an earnings call, that particular information is lagging. So that information is what has already taken place over that previous quarter. That information is being presented now, but they're also going to talk about what they're going to do to try to gain more revenue that next quarter. But everything he talked about was because he took the particular information, he was applying it, and what he was looking to do was trying to get clarity on his application of the information. He wasn't perfect. So we talked about the where he wasn't coming into a particular situation knowing how much profit he wanted to get out of the deal. That's something I really hammer into people, but it's not our fault. It's because we're coming into these particular situations not being trained to manage capital. So that's something that we needed to reinforce. But he was applying everything that had been taught in the course, and then he was trying to get feedback on his application. That's consistent with most people that are successful with what we're teaching, is that they're not just going through the course and trying to figure out how they're going to make money real fast. They're going through the course, they're applying it, and then they're trying to get feedback on application. And that's going to just always be constant. Because anytime you're dealing with a coach, if you play sports, you're always going to them to, how can I optimize this? How can I optimize that? Because they're constantly observing what you're doing, or you're communicating. Same thing if you got a trainer. You're working out with a trainer. The trainer's job, once they give you the program, is just optimize your pathway through the program, right? So they're looking at you work out. They're just giving feedback on what you're doing. They may give you feedback on your diet, your weight, things of that nature. But you're actually doing something. So that's the understanding, is that one of the reasons I was communicating to him, I say, look here, if you just focus on the markets for the next 3 years, In 3 years now, you'll be able to just do what you want to do because you know you always be able to get money out of the market. Now, you may go do something else besides just be in the markets, but you'll know that you can always get money out of the market because you will be doing something that the average person in the United States is not doing. Is you're just focused on the markets. You're not focused on arguing. You're not focused on the gender war. You're not focused on this political stuff. You're just focused on the markets, how they work, and how you can monetize situations going on in the financial markets. That's all you really worried about. Then you now have that particular skill set. You have that tool that you can utilize in the real world. So I said, I want to really encourage you just to study the markets for the next 3 years, because I wish people was telling me this kind of stuff when I was your age. So he's already creating a foundation for success. He's not looking for options alerts. He's going to be in a situation where he can go create his own alert based on his understanding of the market. So it's the difference between empowering somebody and just giving them information that they think can get them the quick result that they want. But when it's over with, they don't know more about the situation than they did when they get in. But at the end of the day, I'm not mad at the options alerts people because they're getting exactly what they want, right? So when you desire something really, really deeply, what'll happen is it'll always show up in your life. Why? Because that's really what you want. So as long as people want to have financial success with very little work on their end, they're always going to get presented with this type of stuff. As long as we keep getting people to be conditioned that there's an easy button to get what you want and you don't have to do no work, you just can get what you want, right? That's always going to get presented to them. So I didn't come into the market thinking that somebody else was going to get me the success that I desire. I didn't believe that for a second. So I was always willing to do the work that I knew that I needed to do to be successful, because I was never under the impression that somebody else was going to make me successful in this market. I never believed that. So because I wasn't looking for that, that didn't come to me, because I didn't create that reality with my mind. So that's one of the things that's what's really going on, is that there's so many people looking to get what they want with very little work on their end that continues to get presented to them. And like I said, is that people are more willing to pay for status than to actually pay for the result that they say they want, because they believe they can go purchase status. So if all I got to do is go to University of Michigan, and now people think I'm somebody because I'm going to the University of Michigan, I'm in the pre-med program, and that gives me social status, I'm willing to pay $80,000 for that. What's interesting is that in a lot of our groups, we haven't put a status on being able to navigate the financial markets. That's not a status to us. So how much do you want to pay to navigate the financial markets successful? I want to pay $100 for that, because there's no status involved in that to me. So that's something I really had to figure out. So what I also want to do is, because we finally got the Teachable site up. So that's going to be the URL to the Teachable site, got all the courses on there. So if you really want to start to really understand how to leverage the options market to get what you want, you're willing to do the work, you're willing to learn, you're willing to apply yourself. You're not going to be by yourself. You will have access to me, but I want you to really understand is that you really want to start considering reprogramming yourself to getting status out of doing work to get what you want, as opposed to assuming that somebody else is going to get your particular success for you. So that's who this particular offer is for. That's the URL to the particular course. Finally got the Teachable site up. Everything's not perfect, but we pretty much got something that we can work with, that we can move forward to. Do we have any questions about options alerts before we get up on out of here? Do we have any questions? Yeah, Mr. Jeffrey, but let me ask you a question. How many people can actually do what they want to do? Really do what they want to do, right? But I feel you, though. So we got any questions about anything? And Mr. Jeffrey, I appreciate your contribution. Mr. Bass, everybody that's on the chat, I really appreciate you coming through. I appreciate you giving the time. I know it's a Saturday. I know we'd be having conversation back and forth. But I really appreciate you contributing to the particular broadcast. I'm not on here by myself. So I really appreciate everybody and their feedback. So we got any questions before we get up on out of here? But I appreciate everybody coming through on a Saturday because it's a nice day outside. Y'all could be doing something else. All right, Mr. Jeffrey, go ahead and ask a question. Mr. Jeffrey, okay, so that's a good question. So he asked, will stop losses decrease the chance of losing a lot of money? What would decrease your chance of losing a lot of money, Mr. Jeffrey, is deciding that you're not going to lose a lot of money. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. I'm saying that because I want you to understand what is causing the particular issue as opposed to something external. So a stop loss has to be an external mechanism based on a decision that you make. So you'll stop losing a lot of money. And I don't mean you personally, but a person will stop losing a lot of money when they decide that they're going to stop losing a lot of money. Right? And they'll lose a lot of money until they make that decision. And then they have to apply that decision. And one of the ways in which they can apply that is with a stop loss. But if you haven't decided, I don't mean you personally, but I mean a person has not decided that they're going to lose a lot of money, they could put a stop loss in and they'll go in and get rid of the stop loss because they haven't made a decision. So the way to not lose a lot of money is to decide that you're not going to make a lot of money. Now, I can help you create a structure for that, but you have to make the decision that you're not going to do it. Miss Rashida 9, do you teach how to do short-term trades volatility? I don't understand the question. So do you mean, do I teach how to do short-term trades? Because I don't understand how volatility fits into that particular question. So could you elaborate on that question a little bit so I get a better understanding? Black Free Thinker, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. We got any last questions? Because what's the name getting ready to run in about 20 minutes? So I'm going to check that out before I get up on out of here. Right? We got any last questions? You're going to put that up again, man. Hit up the site. All the courses are there. We moved to Teachable because they got a little bit better platform from a customer service standpoint. And I can continue to build off that particular platform as opposed to what I was doing where everything was kind of flat and it was really segmented. But it was a good platform. Heads up to all my black tech people. I'm going to give you a heads up from a person that is actually a person that consumes a lot of text program. This has got nothing to do with the actual financial markets, but all my black tech people that's learning all this STEM and all this other stuff. There's millions of dollars made on these type of platforms. They're very simple platforms. If you could come up with what we just talked about, a way to solve people's problems in which they don't have to do a lot of work, it makes a lot of money because the most people are kind of lazy. And when you're looking at these type of platforms, Gumroad, Teachable, they're not complicated platforms from a tech standpoint. They're very, very basic platforms, and they make a lot of money because they either charge you a percentage of sales or they charge you monthly and a percentage of sales based on what particular platform level that you have. These platforms make a lot of money offering a very, very simple solution to a large amount of people. As a black tech person, you don't have to, try to figure out how to split the atom using STEM technology. You can solve a very simple problem and make a lot of money. That's a scaled out problem because I pay a lot of money to software services and I'm not paying it to any black tech people, right? But I need my problem to get solved at a level to where I don't have to manage the problem anymore. But I don't know any black tech people that are solving these particular type of software as a service problems. So I'm giving all my money to non-black people, but we got a lot of black people talking about tech. So that's just something I wanted to, from a person that is in the market as a consumer, something I want to just go ahead and say real quick as a sidetrack. I think in the early spring, looking at an early spring. So yeah, I can teach you how to trade on a short-term time span. or a long-term time span. It's really, the time span really is not relevant, right? So once you understand the fundamentals of how the market works, the actual time span is really not relevant. Once you kind of understand how the actual platform, how the actual market actually works. The platform is going ready to get phased out, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm trying to move everything to Teachable. I'm gonna get everything off the old platform because I'm no longer going to be there. So over time, I'm gonna phase it out. So I have a plan. I have a transition plan. I just got to implement it and start phasing people out, right? Because it just took a long time to get everything to that particular platform and to make sure everything was operating the way I needed it to operate. But I'm gonna move everybody off that old platform. Is college doing learn before you earn? What are you learning? And it depends on, you mean technical school or you mean a university? I think technical school is learn before you earn. I don't know about a university because based on your particular field of study, what are you learning and how does it apply to your actual job, right? It may be, it's going to be probably somewhere in the South. So it'll be somewhere probably in the Southeast because of that time of the year. It's probably going to still be cold and I don't want to be cold. So most likely to be somewhere in the Southeast, most likely. It's not investment advice, but I would say $250 to $500 I would start with. That's not investment advice, but I would say $250 to $500, right? That's what I would start with. So that looks to pretty much be it. Appreciate it again to the Black Free Thinker. What we're going to do is probably go ahead and wrap it. So I want to put the URL up again. Hit me up on the particular course. Prices have gone up, but we also have payment plans and a requirement of this particular platform is a 30-day money back guarantee. So because I'm on this platform, if you buy the particular product, if you don't like it within a 30-day period, you have the ability based on the particular platform to get your money back. So that it lessens a lot of the risk. But because of the track record that I have, because of the results I should be able to produce, I don't want to attract somebody that's looking to get their money back in 30 days. If you know you're not serious about getting the result in the market and you don't think there's a status associated with being able to successfully navigate the markets, I'm probably not the person for you. So yes, we got a 30-day money back guarantee, but I'm not trying to attract the person that is looking for a 30-day money back guarantee. I remember back in the day, I was an email marketer. I was selling a $10 product and I had a money back guarantee. And I had a guy email me saying, how do I know you're going to give me my money back? I say, bro, you give me $10. Now, if you give me your last $10, I don't want it. But you give me $10 and you're emailing me about how do you know I'm going to get the $10 back? But that's who I was selling to at that particular time. That's who was on that list. I couldn't believe that. Right? Yeah, I think I think maybe as an apprentice, don't you, Miss Lady L, don't you get paid as an apprentice? So I would say, like with a technical program, you probably do earn as you learn. But I know, like when you go to university, at least when I was in university, I wasn't making any money while I was in school. I was just paying out a lot of money too. The Patreon link is Patreon / Diamond Dave 1. That's the Patreon. So hit me up on the Patreon. Right? So we're gonna go ahead and get up on out of here, man. Cause like I say, I don't want to miss this track race. Cause you know, with these sprinters, man, the race be over in 11 seconds. So we're gonna go ahead and get up on out of here. Appreciate Luminous Z Star channel for the Cash App or the Super Chat. Everybody have a good weekend. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. Be safe out here, man. Hit me up. We're gonna keep learning. We're gonna keep building. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.